It is exactly 9:23 a.m. Our first interview in the second hour of the show is with Dr. Oshupeng Maseng. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program. And we are obviously going to be talking about the ANC's top 6 nominations. We also see that neither Dlamini Zuma nor Lindiwe Sisulu have made the ballot paper for nominations for the ANC presidency. With the battle for the number one post becoming a two-way contest between Cyril Ramaphosa and Zweli Mkhize. Um, Dr. Oshupeng Maseng, a very good morning. Welcome. Are you surprised at all by the nomination list?
No,
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here, ma'am. Good
Oh,
morning
good.
and good morning to your listeners as well. Coming back to your question, if you actually listen to various statements of the ANC from national level to provinces up until your regional and branch level, there's this consistent tone of renewal and unity. Now, when you look at the question of renewal in particular, it should not come as a surprise that you actually see that we do not have a majority of the CR, in fact, majority of the Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma faction actually contesting or being nominated by branches, regions, as well as provinces. So this clearly says to you that this is a contestation of leaders who would not necessarily implement the renewal of the ANC, but actually would want to claim that we are renewing the ANC. But in a nutshell, it appears that branches are actually saying that we do not agree with the Jacob Zuma faction, but predominantly agreeing that we should go log ahead with those that actually we portray them as individuals that can actually renew the ANC.
That is, of course, like you rightly say, that keyword renewal, a new dawn, etc. I'm kind of wondering, can we as South Africans truly believe in this whole renewal statement that the ANC keeps talking about and keeps putting out there?
It's difficult to respond to that question. But what I can say from my observation is that when you consider there are various variables in terms of electing and actually believing in a political party. And among the critical factors in terms of these variables that one needs to consider is your track record in terms of your governance. And one other thing that is still haunting South Africa would be historical credentials. So what do I mean when I say track record and historical credentials? Track record would speak to your ability to govern and deliver services to citizens of your country. And in terms of the ANC, when you think historical relations, you'd consider the fact that the ANC is the organization that actually led the liberation struggle from apartheid to a democratic South Africa. But now, are they delivering to the expectations of the citizens? Now, you have a generational mix in the sense that you have elderly people who still are staunch supporters of the ANC. But you then have the emerging generation that actually believes in track record of a political party in order for them to support that. So you can speak renewal, but you then have to consider in particular thinking that South Africa, remember, we have much more of a younger generation than an elderly generation. So majority of citizens now are starting to consider track record in terms of governance and your ability to deliver services. Hence, there's always and consistently been a decline since 2009 in terms of the support towards the ANC. You'd remember that the last time the ANC actually got a two-thirds majority was during the days of former President Thabo Mbeki. Now, from 2009 you started observing a decline in terms of electoral voter support towards the ANC till this day. So, and it actually brought in municipalities that were taken over by other political parties and where we had consistent coalitions and so forth. So renewal, you might speak renewal, but renewal would not necessarily translate to support because we consider currently track record in terms of governance and delivering services to citizens of your state.
I'm trying to think about loyalty to the ANC. When you think about loyalists to the ANC's history, so to speak, and you talk about the younger generation, and you talk about really key elements here when you talk deliverables. Where and how does the whole issue around corruption also play into this narrative and the ANC leadership going forward? They do seem to be losing traction. They do seem to be having the vast majority of South African citizens losing confidence in their leadership and the fact that they're unable to deliver. And when you look at the top six, when you just look at the top two, they both mired in scandal. The one in the PPE scandal, the health department's PPE scandal, the other one with the Pala scandal. And these are supposed to be our future leaders or the future leaders of the ANC. How do we kind of go beyond that, go past that, knowing that these are people who should be setting an example to the future generations of this country?
Amongst the things that we consider when you look into the practice of politics is what we would call status and prestige. Now, what really do we say when we say status and prestige? We speak your credibility as a leader, your integrity as a leader, and lack of corruption. Now, if it happens that you lose your status and prestige, that would actually mean that you eventually would lose traction in terms of your ability to attract supporters, ability to attract voters, and so forth, and so goes on. So there are voters, for instance, that are able to actually interpret these things, not necessarily understanding that they are interpreting such issues at a level of status and prestige. That's how we consider it, that you lose your status and prestige in society because of your doing. That is actually also relates to track record. That what is your track record? It's not only about your ability or your inability to deliver, but the minute that you have a situation that you are involved in corrupt scandals and so forth and so goes on with it, it therefore means that there are individuals who interpret it in a negative outcome towards you gaining their support. So you can have reasonable support now, but the minute there are corruption scandals, that there are allegations of corruption against you, so you obviously for a normal and reasonable voter or supporter, you would eventually lose support. Hence, I stated earlier that look at the support towards the ANC in terms of the elections at national level and even at local government level. But the ANC consistently keeps on losing support. Instead of going up in terms of percentages, they are actually going down. So issues of corruption and all those things that are typically affecting the ANC. I would take a case in point, for instance, in the Northwest, that the reason why you have smaller political parties like Forum for Service Delivery that were able to gain traction and get voted as councillors and becoming members of council within these various municipalities is precisely because you would find an ordinary layman in the street resonating well with the Forum for Service Delivery and actually moving away from the ANC, and this now becomes an outcome of elections where we have these small political parties in these local municipalities actually gaining traction compared to the ANC. And this now is going to lead us to coalition governments eventually at local government level. And I think to a certain extent, we are going to actually eventually arrive at a level where we have coalition governments at both provincial and national level. Because if you consistently lose support, it means other small political parties are gaining support and you are losing support. And the unfortunate thing about opposition political parties in South Africa is that they are overly fragmented, and hence they are unable to actually defeat the ANC. If there was an element of unity amongst all these other opposition political parties, I think for me it would be very easy to defeat the ANC.
Well, I think the smaller parties are going to have to get their act together and not be so power hungry and power drunk. If they can just put aside their egos, then we can have a very, very strong opposition to the ANC and make certain that service delivery is top of the list of these political parties, and also to stamp out corruption. That being said, my final question to you, because of the ballot of the contenders for the top 6 ANC positions has already been published, what can we expect at the elective conference? Is it going to be very much business as usual? What sort of horse trading will be going on during that weekend?
If we have to rely on the current published list of the top 6 and actually look into this quantitatively or statistically, you would see that Cyril Ramaphosa is leading in terms of the nominations for president. You'd see that Mashatile is also leading in terms of the nominations for deputy president. Unfortunately for Gwede Mantashe, is lagging behind Stanley Mathabat in terms of nominations for national chair. And you then see that Ndumiseni Ntuli is also leading as Secretary General. Then Fikile Mbalula also did not find enough resonance because he's number 3. So if you have to, for instance, speak quantitatively in terms of where we stand now, you would actually see that possibly we can tentatively say we already have a top 6 of the ANC leadership. However, remember that when you arrive in conference, there are always dynamics. There are always nominations from the floor, realignment of functions, negotiations, and so forth. So you actually rely on those things. That would there be nominations from the floor and whether they would get resonance? Would there be realignment between all those that are nominated in terms of trying to reunite the ANC? Or do we rely on the current nomination statistically to say these are the outcomes? So you rely on those things. You either rely on the current nominations, you consider nominations from the floor, you also consider possibilities of realignment and negotiations in the conference in terms of the outcomes. But as things stand, if these current statistics in terms of nominations were actually votes, would say Ramaphosa would still get a second term as president of the ANC.
Okay, interesting indeed. So all eyes on the elective conference. Dr. Oshupeng Maseng, thank you indeed for analyzing the situation for us currently, and you go well. Thanks. We will talk to you again sometime in the future. It is exactly 9:37. News and views right here on Salam Media. Our next guest is Chief Marcelo Flores, Executive Council, SA Aboriginal Congress. So that sounds pretty interesting. What's it all about? And let's unpack that in a minute or two.